Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Matt and I'm back with another update on my layout. This is a fun one. This is something that I have been kind of working on off and on for about a year now. I finally got it done recently and I'm excited about it. It's working great and I'm excited to share that with you. So just to give you a little bit of a recap, because I mentioned in a couple of past videos, but this may be your first video. I've got this section of layout right here, which these far tracks here, it's an interchange track. It's essentially the furthest track out is the Union Pacific Railroad, and the inner track here is the Midland Falls Railroad, and this crossover here is where they interchange. When the train goes through the crossover, it goes down to the yard, and the trains, both Union Pacific, BNSF, and Midland Falls Railroad, they all kind of pass through this interchange point. So it's kind of a busy spot on the railroad, but I've got a little bit of a problem. This track right here is my engine servicing facility. I've got I'm going to have a building that sticks up here. I'm going to have a lot of in-scene details, junk parts, light poles, all sorts of kind of details that kind of litter the scene right here. And I didn't want people to have to try to reach over or through the scene somehow over the building in order to activate these switches, because all the switches on my model railroad that are sort of on the layout itself in view are all hand activated, right? Caboose industry turnouts. But there really wasn't going to be an ideal solution here. So I knew I was going to have to move those turnouts off of the layout itself and onto the front fascia. So I was thinking about it for a little bit, and I was kind of doing some research, and I saw the BNSF Fall River Division, John Parker's layout. And he had kind of a similar scenario where there was a crossover that was sort of hand activated at the front fascia panel. He had a little panel that he created. He had the addition of having sort of a key to unlock those interchange points. And you have to get permission from the dispatcher to unlock and throw those points. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. So it still is giving the engineer kind of like a railroady job, while sort of solving the problem of getting turnout activation off of the layout. And it's really, I mean, it opened up like a bunch of like cool things that you could possibly do with like lighting and all sorts of interesting stuff. So I got to researching things some more. See, this is dark territory, right? Which means there's no lighting in here at all. There's no dispatcher really kind of like setting up blocks or moving trains through blocks. There's no signaling to indicate where trains are positioned, any of that kind of stuff. In real life, this is dark territory. But at Sandpoint, on the Union Pacific Main Line, there is a siding that has a switch indicator light, much like the one that I have created right here. And as I got researching, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I can, even in dark territory, take advantage of having lights and cool things on my layout. And it's kind of fun. So I set out to figure out how to wire all this up. Talked to a lot of great people, got their ideas, and I'm so happy with everyone that I talked to. Everyone had kind of a different approach for doing things, which is really kind of funny. And at the end of the day, like the reason why it took me a year to figure this out, and I apologize, this is a very long and rambling video, but this is what this video is going to end up being, apparently. It took me a year to finally figure out how I was going to do this. And a lot of that was me not knowing what I was doing, me having to research how to do it, and then me having to talk to a bunch of people to see, one, is what I want to do prototypical, and two, is what I want to do even like just feasible from a modeling standpoint. Can I wire up some sort of electronic thing to make this work for me? Once I decided I was in fact going to kind of add in these under the table tortoise switch machines to this section, it forced me to do a couple other things, which actually turned out to be very, very good. The tortoise switch machines, I could stick one here, not a big problem. I could stick one here, However, the point in which the switch points crossed where the switch points lined up underneath the table, there was a support, a big 1x3 support that ran right across there. So there was no place essentially to put that torque switch machine without taking out that support or doing some major sort of reworking of the underside of the table. So that gave me the opportunity to actually upgrade my switches at this point. I've been using Microengineering number 6s here before, and although they worked pretty good most of the time, I was getting some derailments on the switch right here. I think because it's coming off of this curve, and some of my cars were kind of getting pulled one direction coming off this curve, and they were kind of picking these switch points here. And on the Microengineering switch points, they kind of sit flush with the outside rail. And so there's kind of an opportunity for me to maybe kind of pick that point. However, I upgraded to Walther's new turnouts. And these things are fantastic. If you are setting up a model railroad for the first time, I highly recommend going with Walther's turnouts. They look very, very good. And mechanically, they are very, very awesome, very strong. So, they have like a little indentation on these rails here so that these switch points sit inside the indentation, so it's nice and flush as your wheels of your cars kind of track across it. So I shouldn't have that problem where the cars are kind of picking this point here anymore. That means, hopefully, crossing fingers, no more derailments. That's an awesome thing. Also, having number 8s, it expands them out a little bit. It pushes this turnout further down the layout here, so it gives me much more of a natural, realistic kind of look as cars are coming in and out of the yard, which is great for some of my longer center beams and that kind of thing. So if you have an opportunity on your layout and you have the space to put in number 8s, I highly recommend number 8s. I think they look really, really good. Every engineer at the beginning of an operating session is given some keys, and the keys are used in other locations around the layout to pretend like we're unlocking switch points. But in this case, it actually really does unlock a switch point. This interchange track is locked out. There's no way to sort of throw this without having a key, right? So if I were to flip my switch here and try to throw my switches, nothing happens. None of the lights change. None of that, right? However, I've got a key. And that key will unlock these switches. And now at this point, I can throw my switches. And my lights change. They go from green to yellow. And you can see there on the layout itself, green to yellow. And I'm able to enter the yard then at this point. And then when I'm done, throw it back to the main. All my lights turn back to my color I want. I can go and lock it out again. It's a fun, simple little interaction, but it has sort of real-world analogs. And it took me a long time to figure out how to make it work. Let me show you how to make it work. Okay, just to save some time and energy editing my video here, I'm going to go ahead and show you in a physical form the track wiring diagram. I'm also going to have a digital version of this available on my Facebook page for anyone who wants to see it and take a look at it, because like I said before, I hadn't really seen anything sort of wired up the way I needed it to. So it took me a little bit of figuring things out to figure out that, what I was doing to make sure that this worked the way it needed to. So what I have right here is I have 12 volt power supplying 2 tortoise switch machines, one for each turnout, right? And the way I've sort of set this up is I have an electric key lock, which is turning power on and off to these switch machines. And that key lock goes to a double pole, double throw on switch. So in one position, the turnouts are being thrown one direction, and in the other position, the turnouts are being thrown the other direction. And this is the wiring, and this is how all this looks. This is where all these wires are going. One thing I wasn't sure about, took a little bit of research because I had never really kind of worked with LEDs before, was how much resistance to put into the LEDs. I think I used like a 1000 ohm resistor. That sounds right. And I had it coming off of the tail of these LEDs here. These LEDs are very, very tiny on this little switch indicator here. And so having that resistor coming off of the tail end of that works just fine there. The LEDs themselves, the indication is being controlled by one switch machine here, coming off of these two leads here. So there's like an internal little mechanism as it's switching the switch machine itself. It's also switching this internal mechanism, and the internal mechanism is supplying power to either this one or this one, which is what would turn on either your green or your yellow LED. I have the added complication of having LEDs on my front fascia as well, so I just kind of have it split off at this point and go to a second set of LEDs, which I did not show in my diagram here, just for purposes of clarity. But that's how that works. All right, thanks for sticking around to the end with me on this one. I appreciate it. It's a lot, I understand, but I'm really excited that I have this done now. Now I can go in here. I added all sort of the track details at this point to the turnouts and the track surrounding it. Now I get to paint it, weather the track, ballast it, and move on from this scene to other scenes on the layout. Thanks again for showing up, everyone, and I appreciate all of you, and I'll see all of you in another video.